How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the movie Castle, and today we're talking about Rise Blood Hunter from 2007. This is written and directed by Sebastian Gutierrez and stars Lucy Liu and Michaelchiklis. This is also from Ghost House Pictures. Ghost House Pictures, that's Sam Raimi's production company. A pretty cool place, and it's always cool to see what they're up to, so add this to the Ghost House collection. So yeah, I discovered this movie a fair bit ago. Saw Lucy Liu was in it, and it was a dark vampire, what appeared to be an action movie. And I thought, hey, why not pick it up? And plus, at the used movie store, this was only like $3 or $4. An old, previously a Blockbuster movie. You find those every now and then. It's always a fun bit of nostalgia to see the little Blockbuster symbol at the bottom. Kind of dates the movie a little bit. But I picked it up and I watched it, and I remembered really liking it, but I hadn't really thought about it for a few years. And I was browsing Starz recently, and I saw that Starz had Rise Blood Hunter. Now, it had been a bit, and I thought, hey, why not check this movie out again? And after I watched it, I of course went on YouTube to look up and see what other people are saying about this movie, and I found that there's not too many people talking about it. There's only like 3 or 4 other people who have reviews out for this. I mean, 2007, so when this came out, YouTube was like 1-2 years old, so that makes sense. But this is kind of one of the things I really want to do with my channel, is take movies that haven't been talked about too much and, give them fleshed out and thoughtful reviews. Around this time, you had lots of vampire action, think Blade, think the Underworld movies, and those everybody knows and talks about, but Rise Blood Hunter doesn't get as much attention, and I know why, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but before we do, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the plot. Now, I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points and make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what the movie's about. So, we open up, there's a guy and a woman at the bar. The woman appears to be a prostitute, and she's trying to solicit the man, but before she can get very far, Lucy Liu steps in and sweeps the prostitute away for herself. Lucy Liu and the prostitute go back to a beautiful big mansion, and surprise, surprise, Lucy Liu kidnaps her and ties her up as vampire bait. An old vampire walks in. Lucy Liu demands information in exchange for the girl, but then, after she gets it, a double cross kills the old vampire and sets the woman free. Now, why is Lucy Liu hunting vampires? Why are there vampires running around the city? How did we get here? Well, that triggers a flashback. We go back in time and we find that when Lucy Liu had a regular life, she was a reporter. She's a reporter, and she had just done a big story about underground goth party culture. The story's over, but her friend, the nerdy computer guy, says, hey, I looked on the internet and I found a secret invitation to a super, super secret party. And Lucy Liu says, oh, that story's over. I'm about to go on vacation. I don't need any of this. But, she has reporter instincts, so even though she tries to ignore it, the next day she shows up at the address of the party and finds some blood and gore there, and she runs away, goes to meet her nerd friend, who is dead as well, and outside of his apartment, runs into some big bag vampires. The vampires kidnap her and drink her blood, intending for her to die right there. But Lucy Liu's tough, and she's not having that, and she wakes up in the morgue as a vampire, and she has to figure out what her new life is and adjust to this. It's very much Daisy and dreamlike, and she has to figure out what being a vampire is all about, and she'll eventually meet a mysterious figure that helps her on her way and sends her on a Kill Bill-style quest for revenge against this gang of vampires that ended her life and gave her a different one that she doesn't like. Along the way, you also meet Michaelchiklis, who is a cop, and Michaelchiklis, his daughter, went missing at this aforementioned vampire party. He wants to find her, but it's a vampire party. I don't think she's going to be alive, and he is determined to find the vampires, although he doesn't know they're vampires yet, which will send him on a collision course with Lucy Liu, and the two will learn that they have similar goals. Now, I watched this recently on Stars, and I thought, that was good, but it wasn't as good as I remembered it. And I picked up the DVD out of my collection. I pulled it off the DVD rack, and I looked at the front, and I saw it said, Unrated Undead Cut. Now, 99% of the time, whenever you see a horror movie, it's like, oh, it's the unrated cut. It's usually not that different. It's usually like 2 or 3 minutes longer with hardly any extra material, and it's just a marketing ploy to say, ooh, this time it's bigger and badder, and you want to watch this cut. And normally I watch that cut anyway, just for the 2 or 3 extra minutes, because hey, might as well. But I wasn't really expecting it, but I was looking through the back of the DVD pre-doing this review, and I noticed something. It includes over 25 minutes of never-before-seen footage. There's a difference. The cut on Stars, the theatrical cut, is about 98 minutes long. This cut is approximately 122 minutes long. That is a pretty significant difference, and it is something that's bugging me. In the DVD era, you had lots of these unrated cuts, and some of them are very different. Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3, you really want that extra cut. Some of the Friday the 13th movies, Jason Goes to Hell, I'm pretty sure that cut for that, the unrated one, was a lot better. However, for some reason on streaming services, they tend to give you the rated cut, and I don't know why that's the thing now, is they're just sharing the main cuts of these movies when there are a few cases, and in particular this one, where you really want that extra cut, and I don't know why these streaming services are buying the regular cut, and even if it was just 2 or 3 minutes longer, still you want to go for that extra cut. I don't know. People who run movie streaming services apparently aren't big movie fans. I don't know. But this one, in particular, you want this unrated undead cut. When I saw that, I popped it into the player really quick and went to look and see what's different with this cut. Keep in mind, I saw it on Stars, and I'm like, that wasn't as good as I remembered. Well, I put it in here, and there's some differences. Now, it's not like there's whole extra scenes added in. It's not like it'll totally change the movie. There's no big revolutionary, oh, I can't believe they cut that out. A lot of the extra 25 minutes here is just adding little bits here and there to scenes to give them more time and help them breathe better. If you saw the extended cut to Dr. Sleep, it's a lot like that, where the extended cut to Dr. Sleep, just all the scenes are a little bit longer. By the way, major props to HBO Max, because if you go to Dr. Sleep and you go to bonus features, there is the extended cut of that movie in there. HBO, you did it right for that one. But anyway, a lot of this extra time is letting the scenes breathe and have more weight, but that's not actually the biggest difference, not so much the runtime. With this cut, they changed the order of the things that you're showed. So, in the main cut, it goes back in time, you see her as a reporter, she becomes a vampire, and she starts picking these people off in chronological order. In the main cut, she flashes back to waking up in the morgue, flashes back to the present, then flashes back to being a reporter, and it, from there, starts cutting around where you see these scenes out of order, but in a way that makes sense, and it makes the whole movie feel very dreamlike, very much in a daze, where you're seeing chunks of these memories, and you see how they play together a little bit more as time goes on, but it also arranges things in a much more interesting way. When you look at the main cut, a lot of these vampire characters that she kills really quickly, and they're very simple crossbow shooting kills. And in turn, the beginning part of this movie is kind of slow, with Lucy Liu just going to a few of the main vampire henchmen and going pew pew, and then they're dead. But then you look at this other cut, and it moves some of those deaths later to where they have more impact. And in turn, you see a lot more of what her life has become. So when the death itself is really short, it still has more emotional weight behind it. You also get Michaelchiklis' character, who is absent in the theatrical cut for a very long time because they don't simply encounter each other till later on. He's in the movie much more in the middle, and you really do get a better sense of who he is, and that is one thing that is better. Now, the extended cut, significantly better. It still does have its problems, like I mentioned, where a few of the vampire kills are simple pew pew with the crossbow and they're dead. This is not as big of an action movie as you might think. Like I said earlier, Blade, Underworld, crazy vampire action, and Lucy Liu, who we know can do action, who is a really cool action hero. I mean, Charlie's Angels, right? This is really more meant to be about a character in this strange, dreamlike world coming into a new realization of her reality, and in turn, there's not near as much action as you would think, so that's probably a large part of why this movie doesn't get as remembered as Blade or Underworld, is this really isn't an action movie. It's a dark, film noir-esque character study, and, you know, the mysterious, you know, way the plot's told, it's very different than your standard action movie, and if that's what you're looking for, that's really not in this, but you do get a few other things. You know, I felt that the character, the mysterious figure that's kind of her mentor and sends her on her way, he's really underused even in both cuts, where he just kind of, you know, shows up, points her in the right direction, but overall isn't a huge presence, and you think that there would be a whole bunch more training montages and it'd be harder for her to get on her feet, but she really just needs this little bit of time. And then there's also not really too much with the side characters. I mean, in the other cut, Michaelchiklis is more defined, but he's still not a huge presence, and a lot of these other vampires, you kind of get to know them, but it's not like they're big characters. You don't get to meet her family really well, and her friends at the newspaper aren't important. It really is all about her, and in turn, some of these side characters are kind of pushed to the edge, and you kind of wish she had an opportunity to have more friends and interactions with people, and, you know, then they could have, you know, noticed and pointed out the change more, you know, because there is a big difference. Early Lucy Liu is a vampire, and then this big cut where after she meets the guy that points her in the right direction, where she's this tough vengeance person, you know, and it is cool to see that character change, and that is really nice. But yeah, overall, it is kind of this weird thing where people did want more of an action movie, but that's really not where this wants to go. But it was overall pretty interesting. Just, yeah, no, this is not an action movie, but to see this character in this new way of life, you know, like the first time she has to suck someone's blood and she's trying to make sure she's got someone that's not too important than her, just going around these dark streets. It is pretty interesting, but it's not the crazy action movie that a lot of people are expecting. Overall, it's pretty cool if you get the unrated cut. The regular one is fine, though. It's just not the biggest and the best movie, and in turn you see why it was kind of forgotten, but this still is pretty fun. A really cool, dark, film noir-esque thing. A person given this new dark life that she doesn't really want to, has to, you know, go throughout the streets. Overall, it's pretty fun. Not the best thing ever, but, you know, a really fun little vampire story, and yeah, kind of sad we didn't get other movies, you know, Rise, Bloodhunter. They clearly wanted to do Rise something else, you know, as a sequel, but this unfortunately didn't get to be a big franchise. You know, I think if it was a franchise, they already had the main character set up. They could have put her in any number of adventures now that we know who she is and what she is, and a few of the things like her family that didn't get super fleshed out could have been more fleshed out in sequels. But this is one of those movies that never did get to be a big franchise. It's pretty fun, but not, you know, not the best thing ever, but granted that it's relatively cheap as a DVD and pretty easily accessible, I'd say go out and watch it. But yeah, definitely want to get the extended cut. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You are really helping the channel out. I'll put a relevant playlist down here if you want to see more. You can click there and see more. I'm sure I'll have something else that you like. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.